is why I don't wear bonnets because this is literally this is the reason why I don't wear bonnets. I don't like wearing bonnets because I feel like the stereotype is so negative that nobody can see a bonnet for anything other than um an anchor to black women and a negative anchor at that. Me personally, I know better. I have been a part of bonnet gang, but I too stand with Monique, my fellow Baltimorean. Yes, put the bonnets away. Why? Because it don't belong outside. And because of that conversation, I'm not being gonna like talk about black women in that way, but like that's just my purpose and my mindset. My mindset is I don't wear bonnets because I don't like this negative stereotype. Now, should I be smart enough to protect my hair? Yes, but does that mean that wearing a bonnet is out of line or never gonna happen with me? No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that's typically my situation. I give my bonnets to my kids because they can get away with wearing bonnets, but I'm a black woman. I can't do nothing wrong, but definitely wearing a bonnet is not one of those things. So I want to know if any of you have any type of feedback that you can give on how the black community has, in your opinion, the black church has failed black women by preventing us from um, finding the love that we need because there's no one here in sisterhood to bring apart a neighborhood, to help the children, to like help the parents, and that since black men have left brotherhood, you know, brotherhood was a part of church. Like black men don't have brotherhood anymore. All they have is, you know, do you know what they have? So my channel is about black women, but I want to just talk about how, it's important for us to not be codependent on our children and to find ourselves because we always stuck under everybody's mess. We're never putting ourselves first. We're always agreeing with whatever goes with the flow because that's the only way we can, just move on without rocking the boat. But sis, you got to strike the boat sometimes because there's really nothing else that can stand in your way besides you. So you have to rock your own boat by talking about things that really ails you because it's a release and it will heal you because you get to vomit or excrete those germs and those toxins that have been plaguing you like this bonnet in the black community all its time. So, like I said, I was reading Ayana books years ago and, learning how to be a mom and what I needed to offer, and, always being aware of the church. And I've been having this conversation with my daughter lately, and I was just like, you know what? It's getting on my nerves. It's bearing down on my soul. I've been trying to hide this from you for so long. And I say, I know that we've talked about this, but not in the extent of how it should be in order for us to really release it and move forward. And that was how I had experienced domestic violence um, with her father. And she's always known, but I think what has happened is after the Kiki Palmer incident, the gates of hell like busted wide open, and I could no longer hide the PTSD I have from my daughter and how his energy literally, and I know the word energy is just everywhere, so I'll try to use it as least as possible, but I'll say spirit. His spirit would linger because of his domestic dispute and how he handled himself. And you know how when you have kids and the father's not around, they're curious, right? Why do you think that that children are curious about the parents? They're curious about the missing parent, which typically is the dad, because the dad is the one who is missing the responsibility. So who is responsible? Mom. Who becomes codependent? Mom. Who do children become codependent on? Mom. The children need the mom more than they need themselves. The jobs need the mom more than the moms need themselves. The church need the moms more than the moms need themselves. The the community need the moms than the moms need themselves, and the community is not even an option anymore because we don't go to the community anymore. Church is not an option for me anymore. You know why? I don't participate in church anymore because the black men have failed to stand up, and that was one of the other points that we make about how racism has affected us. And men always want to blame everybody but themselves, but black men, you stop going to church, you stop listening to the word. You stop reading your Bible. You stop participating in all those important behaviors that we grew up on as Black people in our communities. And you decided, oh, well, I ain't got to go to do church no more. But guess what? That's what we met you. Y'all want to tell the truth? Ask a lot of these Black women who have children with Black men. Where do we meet our Black men? At the church. I know I did. My abusive baby daddy, I met him at church. Not literally, but like we used to go to church together. How ironic, huh? Did that stop him from being violent? No. And I say that to say we as Black women have to start talking to our daughters more, not about more about domestic violence than we talk to them about um what's the word? See, I'm shaking because you see that I am literally shaking because this is such a topic that has, and this is live, y'all. I am literally shaking because this is such a topic that I have been plaguing myself. Do you see that? Do you see me shaking? I cannot shake my fingers like that. Like I really can't. Anyway, I hate talking about domestic violence because it's so scary, but I have to tell my story. And it's not just about my story, but I have actually worked with the House of Ruth. I have taken calls from women who have received domestic violence threats and have been in relationships with men who threatened them. And I've seen the end results of what has happened to women who like think that who I've seen the end results of women who didn't make it. Shout out to Leah Gordon. It's one of the YouTube channels I used to watch, and I used to love her channels, but I had to stop watching. Unfortunately, you may continue to watch if you like. No boycotting here. Not on Black women's part. We don't boycott any Black women. But what I was going to say was when I started watching a lot of the stories about how women were getting abused and they were unalived, I started freaking out because I realized like this is something that we need to talk to our daughters about. Everybody wants to be on natural hair TikTok. Everybody wants to be on hack TikTok. Everybody wants to be on weave TikTok, but nobody wants to be on a TikTok about, preventing domestic violence. And once I realized that my daughter was getting at the age where I had to question whether or not she understood the basics of domestic violence, and that was from a place of not just physical, because we get so blinded by domestic violence and thinking that it's only physical, right? It's not. Domestic violence comes in so many shapes and forms. It's not just physical because you can have someone try to emotionally intimidate you. And, going into that, there's Diddy. Look at how he manipulated all of these women allegedly into doing all of these things that was unhealthy. He missed the church. Like, think about it. Look at all of the people, because people always complain about how the men in the church and everybody's hypocrites, but I think I would rather deal with a hypocrite that was in a church than the ones that don't go to church no more. Because at the end of the day, like, you have to take into consideration that if you don't have respect for women, the chances of dating a woman or a woman being respected around you is highly unlikely. And I think that we need to talk about that. I think we need to discuss how there's ghetto family bingo. That's my new name for it. And it's like or I didn't like the word. I really don't like the word ghetto, so I'm going to say is hood family bingo, and that is how like you can have cousins, right, that you don't even know of, and they can be older than you or younger than you, but guess what? You don't know none of their names. And why is that? Because we're not going to church no more. Nobody is holding themselves accountable. No, there's no men holding other men accountable. And Gen X, millennial, if you want to say. And when I grew up, we was getting over the MLK days, and Martin Luther King was getting a holiday, and all of the stuff that was important. Jesse Jackson was still important. Al Sharpton was still important. They weren't known for scandals, right? But once their scandals got out, people stopped taking them as serious. Although they stopped taking them as serious, we still had some respect in the church. There was still some men going to church. Now, there is hardly any men going to the church that is from Gen X or the millennials in the black male parenting atmosphere because they are afraid to be held accountable for not taking care of their children and for committing domestic violence against their children, their parent, the mother of their children, the children themselves, and how they terrorize their children intentionally by failing to be in their life because they don't have to. We always talk about how moms are tired, but people don't understand why moms are tired. We're tired because we don't have a lot of outlets. And the one outlet that we used to have was the church, right? So when we could go to church and participate and fellowship and get those hugs and love, we were able to stay whole. And then the pandemic happened and people weren't able to do that. But before the pandemic, black men was still in bonnets. They left the Bibles and they picked up the bonnet bondage, and they went from thinking about themselves as, kings and warriors, which is another thing I don't like to associate myself with, but I'm saying I use those words kind like, like with quotes, like kings, because you got to think about it. When you are in church, you can't be showing up and don't nobody know where your kids at, right? You think you're gonna go to church and Uncle so and so and Deacon who and who and Pastor Johnny Boy and all of them going to see you showing up to this church every Sunday or once a month or every 3 months, and he know you got seeds out here and children that you have not taken care of, and you think they're not gonna ask you about these kids? And I feel like because of that, black women have received the most church hurt because we talk about church hurt all the time. But I feel like the black women is on the receiving end of this whole church hurt saga because and solely because we stayed in the church way past due and was continuing to pay tithes and find ourselves committed, showing up, eating, cooking, doing everything for the church. And the church baby daddies stopped going to church. And like my deadbeat baby daddy, who's a domestic violence, um, I'm a domestic violence survivor of, um, had to be outed recently in order for the bondage of his bonnet and his failure to trade in his Bible for his bonnet because he think he's so funny and he's now a comedian. But what he fails to realize is the joke is on him because he's missing out on an opportunity to be a father to his child. And I literally can say I grew up in the church with this man, and once he got he stopped going to church, nobody was able to hold him accountable anymore. Nobody asked him where was his kid because no one cared. And who does that affect? Black women. Again, because at least when you went to church, I could meet you there and drop you off at the church. I can't do that no more. We're talking about the deadbeat baby daddy side of family. We're talking about the deadbeat daddy side of family because they exist because they don't go to church no more. And we all can agree to disagree, but this is my opinion. I feel like the reason why, this Kiki Palmer situation, this Cassie situation has gotten overshadowed by Kiki Palmer's is because it's light skinned women that's finally coming out and speaking for themselves and saying, oh, yeah, I too was, assaulted by somebody. But, Kiki Palmer's shine got stolen, which thank God, because we don't want to remember Kiki about this bad situation. But you see how quickly people forgot about Kiki Palmer because she's dark skinned, right? Or, her phenotype might be dark skinned. We forgot about Kiki Palmer and went on to Cassie because Cassie got money from her accuser versus Kiki Palmer being able to receive nothing, right? Do you think that these black men that are accused of domestic violence are in the church? No, not anymore. See, back in the day when I was going to school, and I was like in high school and I was going to church and stuff. Most of the black men were in church, whether they was domestic or not. And 9 times out of 10, maybe 3 times out of seven, you don't see that many black men being abusive to black women. You found them here and there, but all the black men when the church weren't all abusive, right? And for as far as we know, we kept a lot of the, spaghetti files out of the those locations, right? So, because we left the spaghetti people out of our files, spaghetti files from our churches, which we hope we did, right? The other types of men, because we always categorize black men as in jail, gay, or homosexual, more appropriate word, because I, as a, LGBTQIA, that's not the proper word, but homosexual. Don't try to quote me all the time because I'm not going to always be this correct, politically correct, because I'm human and I am in this spiritual experience. So my intentions are well, although my mouth may not catch up to what I'm saying. So what I'm saying is basically, I just explained and I talked to my daughter and I asked her, what do you know about your grandfather, right? Because I want y'all to see how my story ties together. I asked her, I said, what do you know about your grandfather? And I'm not talking about your, you know, um, your step grands or my grand, like what do you know about your blood grandfather? And she's like, I don't know much. And I'm like, that's sad. You should know something about, who this person is. But what do we have to do? Go on Facebook and investigate to see who our family members are because we don't know them. And I blame that all on the black church. I really do. I blame it that on the black men, and I blame it on the black men who started running church because they stopped worrying about honor, respect, loyalty, uh, discipline, and they started learning about how to use church as a place to pick up people, and like a lot of straight men left the church, and the straight men who left the church that are baby daddies, and they contribute to deadbeat baby daddyisms. And I feel like my daughter's father was a deadbeat all this time, right? He had always been a deadbeat, but he was a partially decent when he was in church. He was one third of kind when he had a girlfriend who went to church. But once he started getting into behavior that was creepy, he got put out of the church. So because of that, he don't have nowhere to go, and now he don't have no excuse to not take his kid because nobody's gonna see him in person and make him accountable. And I say that with my chest. I really do. You know why I say that with my chest? Because they have gotten put out the church, and we need to talk about it because they are violent. They're angry. They don't know how to talk to people. They can't participate, and they blame all of black women for being codependent on them. When the truth of the matter is, they're codependent on their mamas, and they sit there and make us responsible for it by not taking care of their children. Like, how can you be a comedian and talk and be funny and think that after you get your gig that you're supposed to get a paycheck when you out here fronting on your children and got them in situations that they can't be in? I used to explain to my daughter how her grandparents were act, and how this was not my fault. Like, it wouldn't matter what I do, they will always use me as a pawn to ignore their responsibility. And I feel like it's the church's fault, because if black men were going to church like they used to, somebody would be able to pull them up and say, hey bro, where's your little girl? They don't go back to those churches because they don't want to be held accountable. And we need to get the church and the spiritual community that's showing up in these places. We need everybody to come back together to try to explain and to extend the support of Black women. Why? Because if we don't, who else is going to continue to raise the women that we already have? It took for me to really sit down and ask my granddaughter, did she even know who her relative was that's semi famous? You know, did she know who he was? And she's like, no. And I'm like, that's a damn shame. You only know what you know based on the internet, but you know nothing else about this person. And that's because if this deadbeat baby daddy showed up to church, people would have to question him and ask him, "Where's your kids?" Because that's the only place you get held accountable for not taking care of your kids is the church, or it used to be when I was growing up. So going back to the domestic violence portion of it, I feel like, in the 50s and the 60s, men used to put their hands on women in a way where it would be like, let me slap you. And people used to think it was okay, right? And even though they didn't report them, okay, I'm slapping you, you delirious. Not acceptable, but that's how it was. And people have went from that. The men and the Black men have went from slapping a woman or tossing her around to straight Kiki Palmer and Diddy style. Well, not Kiki Palmer style. Well, Black women are experiencing it, as Kiki Palmer and Cassie, but primarily Diddy and Darius style, because nobody's holding these men accountable for hitting on women. Like, where are the boomers? Where are the Black men in the boomer community that should be telling these ninjas to sit your behind down somewhere, pull your pants up, take your head off when you come in the house? Have some respect. Don't come in here smelling like weed. And if you do come in here smell like weed, pretend, you know what I mean? Take it, go and air out. You know what I mean? Like, nobody, people have lost our common courtesy and respect. And I feel like it's because everyone has stopped going to church. And I personally have been hurt by church because I feel like they didn't protect me when it came to the baby daddies. You can't ask your family for protection because if something happens, they'll be responsible. You can't ask the baby daddies, mamas for protection or support because they're not going to protect you because they don't want to be responsible either. You can't ask the baby daddy for anything because, of course, he's not going to give you nothing. And meanwhile, not only are they neglecting the children and they're neglecting the Black woman, they're also emotionally, physically, financially, you know, and assaulting these women. And nobody's talking about that. Nobody's talking about that. Like, I was so burned up earlier, I hated that I waited so long to talk to my daughter about domestic violence, especially because of what I know about it. But I never wanted to admit to her that her dad was such a person, right? But when your kids get older, they have access to the internet, right? And now that she has access to the internet, she could go in and share her details or not her details, but she can go in and search her questions on her own, right? And ask and find out information about people that she's curious about, i.e., a deadbeat baby daddy. So when she went in and did her research on this deadbeat baby daddy, she realized that he had an assault case that which was thrown out due to the mama right here, right? She was able to go find that information and see that her father was abusive, and it took her to admit to me that she knew that information before I shared it with her. And I want you to think about that. Why do you think that is? Why do you think Black women don't tell our daughters about domestic violence, or we don't talk about it? And why, in my opinion, I think the reason why we don't talk to Black women and our children about domestic violence committed by their parents, their dads, primarily their Black fathers, is because nobody's going to believe us, right? We talked about this whole Beyonce thing, and it's so funny that when I first started recording my videos, I was in such a different mental place, and I haven't been on the internet in a while because I've been really needing to just take a, social media break, social media sabbatical. So, I've been avoiding this conversation because it's literally made me sick to my stomach because I was so ashamed of myself for waiting so long to talk to my daughter about this such an important topic. We got the hygiene police, like I said, the natural hair police, we got the soft girlies, we got everybody else, but nobody is talking about how domestic violence is affecting Black women so popularly because nobody cares anymore. I had to stop watching my favorite YouTubers because the only stories that were being reported is assault and SA to deceased Black women. And while I want to say RIP to them, it's too much to ingest. So I had to take a break, and I said, how can I make this page that I'm trying to create make my content about you know hood, aka motherhood, and make it interesting and like informative, and as we begin to have these conversations about our children and how our children have been failed because of certain things. And I talk about why are Black women mean, and that's the one video that went viral, but it went viral ironically years after it was recorded. I recorded that video when we were living on a campground. We no longer live there, and I thought the whole time we were on the campground, why is it that we're not protected? Why don't people listen to Black women? Now, mind you, this is before Beyonce dropped off Renaissance, the movie version anyway. So she could have been working on Renaissance in the 18s, 2019s or so. But I was working on this question with myself because I said, why do people treat Black women so nastily? I'm on the road with my kids. I'm teaching them about nature. I'm giving them education and information. I'm showing them how to travel. I'm showing them how to take care of a camper. I'm educating my children. Why are people so angry with me? And it was because I had no support. I was frightened. Like, I literally was a Black woman on the road with two children, and I had no male support. And like, it showed. I felt that. I felt those stares from the white people looking at me like, why is this N word down here without a man? Where's her man? And it's true. Where is my man? Like somebody put that in my comment, and I didn't want to talk about it because I wasn't ready. But the truth is, there should have been someone on the road with me, right? Even if it wasn't a man, it should have been someone on the road with me to help me, and so I wasn't alone in all of my adventures. But through all of that, the only person I had by my side was my daughter, and we've been struggling with our relationship because I feel like we talked about some things, and I don't talk to her about the things that she needed to really address, which was who is my grandfather, who is my grandmother, who's my who who are I'm sorry, how did guess get flipped around? Yeah, it's like who are these people, right? And how come I don't know them? And I have to blame that again on the church because when I was still going to church, I remember the Black men holding other Black men accountable, and that's why I feel like Black men have put the Bible down and picked up the bonnet. And it's easy to try to be like, you know, Tyler Perry than it is to try to be like Kobe Bryant, girl dad. Where's all the girl dads that was, you a domestic violence assault case having girl dad, but you love your daughter? We have to call these men out. We got to stop allowing men to just keep assaulting us verbally and keep pretending like that's not a part of pain and that it doesn't hurt us and our children. Assault doesn't come just by physical assault and support where everybody's going to get off like Cassie and get a big check. There are going to be some Kiki Palmers out here, and we need to be more sensitive to them. We need to be more understanding towards them, and we need to hold more people accountable. Black men, where are y'all at? Y'all need to stand up. I'm tired of seeing y'all sit y'all behind down and keep complaining about stuff, but you ain't doing nothing. Y'all don't went from from the pulpit to the podcast. Get back. Get back. Let's go back to where we started. You need to get from off the pulpit, from off the podcast, and go lay at the altar and let the Lord um absolve you of your sins, because you're not going to survive or thrive in life when you're being a deadbeat to your children, because that's a part of your learning experience. We're here, our children are here to teach us, and if you refuse to learn from your children, you will learn nothing, because your children are a reflection of you. So if you don't learn from your children, that means you're not learning anything from yourself or for yourself. So, just to wrap up, I'm going to close this out with an affirmation. Why? Because I'm trying to really get more consistent with my content. So, I hope that, you guys made it this far through the video. I know in the beginning there was a lot of hiccups, and I hopefully will get to the point of this channel where I can really, really edit the way that I should. But for the meantime, just thank you so much for just the likes, the views, the subscriptions. Shout out to my new subs. Y'all been holding me down. I really, really appreciate it. And I hope that my content is something that you can relate to, because I really would like to hope that we can really talk about codependency as black moms, because my channel is about black mothers, and the whole purpose of this is finding ways to heal through the things that we're still working on within ourselves, our positivity, and not being codependent with our children. Because a lot of the times that Black women are frustrated and angry is because we have nobody to support us. So we're codependent on the only people who are around us, which are our children, which are unable, in which our children are unable to fulfill our needs, and not if it's just on a immature, like in on a mature intimate level. No, I'm speaking of, like this week I was sick, and I tried so hard to get some support. I started the I Don't Wear Bonnet Chronicles this week because of the incident with Nurse Morgan and how I was treated at the doctor's. So when I sat back and I thought, who was here taking care of me? It was my daughter. And I said to myself, like, this is something that would not have been the case before, because I even talked about how much I miss my old church, because, when I got sick and I was at church, that was the only people who came and saved me. And I feel like because we don't have a church no more, the black women are losing out. And I know my battery's about to die. And the black men are, I'm not gonna say they losing out, because they choose to lose out, and don't even matter if they don't listen. They can listen. I'm not saying that they don't listen to, black church, but I'm pretty sure they don't be listening to black church. So anyway, with that being said, we need to figure out how do we as black women who left the church because the church hurt. Do you forgive the people who hurt you because the church hurt? Do you continue to, try to trust the snake? Um, do you let the baby daddies be absolved of their behavior when you know for sure offhand they owe you about $35,000 worth of child support, and that's not even with a child support order of $200, more than $200 a month? And do you know? And let me say this real quick. It's a shame that you don't go to church, you don't work, you don't pay no child support, you don't show up for your children, and the most importantly, you don't go to church, because see, when the men went to church, at least they had somebody at the church who was caring for the child. There's nobody here to care for the child now. You know what I mean? So because there's nobody to care for the children, it's more pressure on motherhood. And we don't have sisterhood where you could drop your kids off at somebody's house and they will look out for you no more. So who are we codependent on? Our children. And who is dependent on us? Our children. It's because there's no buffer. So we have to find ways to communicate better so we don't leave mothers in situations where they have to ask their children to do things that they don't want their children to do. And we need to stop allowing these men to have be domestic violence um criminals and put them back in the home with their family the way they're supposed to be. You want to be smart, it's time for you to do some community service by watching your damn child. You need to take them to church. You need to go pray because beforehand, at least you could drop the children off at church. You can't even drop these children off nowhere. And I know I'm going over, but like, I talked about the whole Kayla Nicole thing back before it was a big thing, and we found out that she was dating another woman. Same situation with myself. I was young. I left my baby daddy alone, and I told my daughter, my son, I told my baby daddy that he had to take care of my daughter. To this day, he still hates me because I left my daughter with him. That's why God gives you two parents so both can help take care. And when I could no longer take care of her because I was sick, he had to do it, whether he did it or not. And everyone, gave Kayla Nicole a little bit of, I guess they may have given her some grief. I'm not sure, but I felt like I was on her team because I had been there too. I was at a place where I was like, come get your daughter. I need a break mentally. And I feel like we need to find other ways to cope and give black moms more breaks and not just a weekend. We talk about Erica Kane all the time, and she's one of my favorites when it comes to the drama. But she's still one of our little TikTok cousins. So I'll say this: when she was complaining about how people keep complaining about her not having her kids, she was like, "Why? You mad that I get a break?" They is. Cause I ain't gonna lie, I'm big mad you get a break, Eric. You see me, I'm big mad. I wish I got a break. And I feel like we need to stop taking that for granted. We need to get some daycare at church. We need to get some community involvement where these moms can get, a break between themselves, and that's the reason why I started my whole platform, which people, don't really read. But the purpose of me starting this platform is to do a barter and exchange for moms so that each mom can deal with being able want to go to church, but she needs a break, or taking her kids to church, and next week you take yours. But everybody's so worried about energy and bad, negativity. It's kind of hard. So I guess church is like one of the only places I feel like black people get into a place where they really trust. So let's blame and figure out how to get these black men away from their bonnets and put them back onto the Bibles, away from away from back on the pulpit, and away from the pantyhose, the bust downs, the and the ones who's not doing that, it's the domestic violence. The only, like, it seems like it's the black heterosexual males who are the head of the mess. Like, because if they're not um on perkies or abusing drugs, they're abusing women. It's like a cycle of abuse, and I need people to stop holding black women accountable or telling us that black women need to be accountable for the way that their children turn out. No, these white and black people that they love to be around, these black men love to be around these white women, they need to be around them, taking them to church, because we have done everything we could do. I felt like I went to the church when I could no longer, sustain, and they was the only people who helped me. So when I only had my daughter to help me while I've been, nursing this migraine, and I had to tell her to go around to the clinic to fight this lady, which I didn't tell her to fight, but you get what I'm saying? Like, that's not fair. So I'm I'm gonna say, I've been reading about Ayanna Fix My Life since I was a kid, and I'm not trying to be my auntie Ayanna, but I'm trying to be your cousin. So let's do some hood bingo, family edition, and try to figure out who some of these ancestries and you know, family relationships are, and help us find ways to, reunite our communities, because us black moms, we were really tired. You know, I know I've talked about a lot of different things, but it's because I've been trying to do this for the longest, but my health wouldn't allow it. And now that I finally feel a little bit better, I said, even though I'm not completely well, I'm going to do this video anyway, so I really hope that you guys watch it. I'm going to try to promote it as much as possible because I would like to work on the motherhood exchange, so we can find ways that we can not be liable for each other, but support and barter with our parenthood. And again, this is for Black moms because once we left the church, we didn't have anyone else to help pick up our community. So, brothers, if you really believe in brotherhood, which I know you don't, but try to believe in brotherhood for the sake of your daughters, and put the bonnets down, pick the Bible up, go back to the pulpit, um, stop being violent and let somebody help you, because a Yana can't fix your life unless you want to. And we sick of hearing y'all complain, because us Black women, we go through it every day and we don't care. We still show up, sick or not. So when our children are getting on our nerves and we complaining, give that mom a break and give that child a break. That child deserves a break too. Come on now, stop trying to make, like, thank you. And it's like, stop trying to make moms, feel guilty for just needing, like, this week, all I've needed was some alka seltzer and crackers and tea. My daughter didn't realize how much work it was to go out and go get all of these things she needed just so I could feel a little bit better. And that's on top of being denied medical health care because we got, hate, hate, hate crimes being committed against Black women, so nobody's coming to their aid and showing up for them at the doctors. I only talked about this Nurse Morgan thing because, it's been something that I was struggling with. I talked about a whole bunch of things when I was on the road, and being on that journey and living outside every day and waking up to nature. You have no choice but to accept what your destiny is going to be. So my battery's about to die, but I just want to close this out by saying, get these men out of the church. If they put these men back in the church, especially these baby daddies who want to be comedians and want to commit domestic violence. Come teach your daughter how to be a young lady and to pay attention to the signs of what DV is, so that she doesn't have to experience the same things that trigger me and get me sick, so she has to take care of me. I'm gonna close up it real quick with my devotion, because that's how I'm doing this and my sister Ayana style, because we're doing 12 steps of recovery, and that's recovery of letting go of codependency with our children, because that's all we have. So we have to find ways to not be codependent of our children. Okay, today is December 10th. Hold up, my battery's about to die. And the word says empowerment. You can think, you can make good decisions, you can make good choices that are right for you. Yes, we all make mistakes from time to time, but we are not mistakes. We can make a new decision that takes new information into account. We can change our mind from time to time. That's our right too, right? We don't have to be intellectuals to make good choices, Morgan. We don't have to be, professionals to make good choices about what type of healthcare we're receiving when we know you got attitude. I digress. In recovery, we have a gift and a goal available to each of us. This is called wisdom. Other people can think too, and that means that we no longer feel or have to feel responsible for other people's decisions. And this is the last paragraph. It says, that also means we are responsible for our choices. Meaning, if Miss Selena from the Circle K decides that she wants to comment about something, she's responsible for that. And the same way that Morgan needs to be responsible for her behavior and how she's been acting based on the fact that she thinks her, credentials gives her the right to criticize people or critique, and anyone can be critiqued. They critique Jesus Christ, as my grandmother used to say. So the last part is, we can teach ourselves. It says we can reach out to others for feedback. We can ask for information. We can take opinions into account, but it's our task to make our own decision. It is our pleasure and our right to have our own opinions. We are each free of I'm sorry. We are each free to embrace and enjoy our treasures of our own mind, intellect, and wisdom. And then the devotion ends with a prayer. And it says, it's a prayer. You can use it as affirmation, whichever is more comfortable for you. This whole podcast was designed to be listened to and not really watched because I couldn't set that up today. So just listen if you can. But here's the prayer and affirmation, and we're going to end. And that is, today I will treasure the gift of my mind, and I'm going to add Black woman to everything. I'm today, Black woman. I will treasure the gift of my mind, Black woman. I will do my own thinking, Black woman. I will make my own choices, Black woman. I will value my opinions, Black woman. I will be open to what others think, but I will be responsible for myself, Black woman. I will ask for and trust that I'm being guided by divine wisdom, Black woman. So I want to end it with that, and to please, Black women, talk to our children, our daughters, our sons about domestic violence. Men, step up. If you haven't been around at any point, you have done nothing for your children, step up and stop just offering them nothing. Give them something. Teach them not to hit on women because it's inappropriate if you can't teach them nothing else. And I'm going to end the mic with that. Have a good one.